I think there's something to be said about how you structure your content program in a business. People can use tools like Ubersuggest to see all the keywords that you're searching online. And so what we as content marketers do is we take all the searches that are relevant to our audience of our target customer, and then we group them into similar searches that are for the same intention. And then we make blogs on each one of those topics. But what I put out, I'd be happy to put my name on as if I wrote it myself. So I think it comes down to the standard. Like anyone can be a mediocre content creator these days.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that. So the question is, if you use AI, how do you actually make your content better as a result? Like when I'm serving clients and I'm using AI, I don't spend less time on their work. I just deliver better work.
Hello, I'm Dustin PolyInnovator. Today I'm talking with Callum Armstrong, who is the founder of Paste and Publish, marketing coach, consultant, and social entrepreneur. This is the show where we talk about modern content creation. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, Dustin. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me here. Sorry.
I guess I forgot to also say the name of the show, the PolyTools Creator Spotlight. And yeah, I'm glad to have you here. I guess the first thing I could ask you is, what got you started being a content creator?
That's a funny story. I was out for dinner with a friend of mine about 7 years ago, and he had just started a marketing agency. And I said to him, just more as a joke than being serious, look, if you have a need for someone to write some blogs for you, I'll do it for a laugh, just for a bit of fun, see where it goes. And I had just left my job. I was selling carpet around the country of New Zealand, and I was about to go overseas and do a bit of backpacking. And so it was more like, oh, this could be a bit of a fun pocket money on the side while I do my travels. And a few weeks later, he said to me, hey, yep, I've got some work I need done urgently. Like, we've got urgent deadlines. I did it. He was quite happy with it. I got some more work. The companies I was serving grew. More clients came on board. And then I came back home to start a business called Manuka Essentials. That was about, I'll get to that later. But while I was building this business, I needed an income, and content creation paid my bills. And that's how it started. Evolved into an agency. It evolved into coaching, lots of other stuff. But yeah, essentially it was just a bit of a laugh one day at dinner, and that turned into a career.
Kind of fell into it.
Funnily enough.
Well,
yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I have been doing content for a long time, and yet I have not made much money from it for the most part. And there's other people who have done the opposite, where they made money, but they didn't really do much in the content side of things. You're kind of like in the middle, where you've made a decent amount of content, but you also made money off of it. So I think there's a lot of lessons there that people listening in could learn from, and me too, probably.
Yeah, I think like what I've noticed is a lot of the people I've hired to write content over the years have been very passionate about writing, about editing, about emails and blogs and social media. And so, for them, it's like, this isn't a career I want. And I think if it's a career that you're driving for, you kind of, you'll take a lower paid gig, or you'll take opportunities that aren't fully money focused. But because I was doing it from the start, and I was thinking, this is a paycheck, like this is how I'm paying my way. It was like, this has to pay me today, otherwise I can't justify it. And so I took a much different angle from it, and I've kind of built the passion out of what's feeding me, rather than being passionate about creating content and then building a career from my passion.
And also, too, I think just putting in the reps ends up kind of building the passion as well. You get to be a little bit more into what you're doing after you've done it for a long while, too. And
For sure.
I definitely like the way you explained it there with, like, some people do it out of passion. A lot of my stuff I've made has been out of passion. But some of this, I try to take a more business approach, too, like you're saying, where it's like, okay, I'm making this so it can be SEO optimized, so I can build a following on this, so that I can then later on throw a right hook, as Gary Vee would say, and sell something or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. It depends on the strategy of the business you're building, right?
Right.
Sorry to pour coffee on the side. It's the start of the day here in New Zealand, so
Good morning.
Wake up ritual comes with coffee.
Oh, this morning was such a slug. I was sitting there trying to drink my coffee, and I had to just chug the whole beer stein just to get myself somewhat awake.
Oh no!
So I feel you. All right, so I guess the next thing I wanted to ask here too is, like, why do you love building brands? What's the passion behind it? What kind of sparked that?
Yeah, when I think about a brand, about a business, it is it has a certain view in our minds. I can name Apple, Netflix, Google, and you're going to have three different emotions or impressions that come up when you think about it. But the brand represents a company or an organization. And a company or an organization is what controls the resources these days.
Mhm.
Yes, you have individuals with money and they spend it in different places. Yes, you have governments that allocate and spend money. But for the most part, economic activity is directed by companies. And so when I build a brand, I'm building the leverage and the trust and the ability to essentially direct the money you spend with me where I want to direct it. And so we are basically creating the future
Mhm.
by taking resources and putting them in different ways. Now, most of that resource allocation is for maximizing profit, admittedly, but that also creates value for the market. And I run a charity called Conservation Amplified, and I do quite a bit of work for environmental charities in my marketing coaching, and seeing how a private business versus a non-profit and anything in between can allocate resources to make the world a better place is why I love building brands. Now, I take a very wide view on making the world a better place. That can be generating wealth for you and your family so that your kids can grow up having a better life than you did, and you can go and live your personal dreams. Making the world a better place can be solving a problem in your industry or for
Mhm.
your market or for your community, and it can be doing something for society. But ultimately, like, we're engaging with brands through their content and their media that builds trust. And without that brand and that trust, most markets, most industries would struggle to be able to have the level of trust they need to allocate those resources.
I love the ambition behind that statement too that you shared, and interesting aspect of like these different companies. We were talking about like StreamYard earlier, and they create like a podcast and content to help the market, and that's one way they're spending their budget towards just helping the community around them. But by doing so, they start building up their brand loyalty and stuff like that. And let's disregard the whole issues going on with StreamYard, but like the point is like that strategy of just trying to build things up. Like it wouldn't seem like there's a great ROI of spending money on a podcast or hiring a host for it and doing all that, but then after results, they kind of show.
But so with StreamYard, I just want to make a note on that because we have a podcast for our environmental charity, People Helping Nature, and we've
Mm-hmm.
been using StreamYard and we're considering moving away from it for various reasons we talked about beforehand. However, one of the biggest things that's keeping us on StreamYard is that jingle that when you're about to start a recording on StreamYard, you press this like sound check button and it sings you a
Mm-hmm.
little jingle and a song. And there's a few little touches that I would consider as their brand. And it sounds so silly, but that's one of the things that's kept us there.
Yeah, I can kind of
It's
get it,
stupid that's such a
honestly.
trivial thing, yeah. Like, could make a
No,
decision.
it doesn't really seem stupid to me. It's like the user experience of it, and that's something that will literally drive people to go towards a tool. I've left tools because the user experience was so bad. I've joined tools like my old podcast host, podcast.co, which made Matchmaker, which is how you and I found each other. I left them because they didn't do any updates to their system, and after a few years, their system ended up being antiquated. But then there's other tools that were, the UI, the UX was not that great, and so you end up not wanting to try it, even though it might be the best tool on the market when it comes to function. And it's just interesting how small details like that really add up.
Oh, it is. And when it comes to content creation, that is a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of when I'm coaching content creators. I'm always coming back to how does the user experience this? I think it's probably my most common question for people is they ask me something and I come back to them saying, well, what's the user's problem? Are you solving it? How to
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in their shoes? How do they feel? You're reading a blog. Is the way the blog's structured conducive to actually making you want to get involved? You're in the back end of a software. Is that software nice to actually interact with? Because we've
Yeah.
got such a short attention span these days. Like, we have the attention of fish. We make fish look like they've got a long attention span. So I think it's like, yeah, it's all about how you package it up. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, a really good tool with a terrible user experience still is likely to succeed. But it could do so much better just by thinking about the human journey.
And also, too, going back to kind of the business mindset, time is money. And when you're having a bad UI, it actually impacts how much time you're spending on doing it. So just for example, I ended up building a collection of clips from all these interviews I've done between my two shows. I ended up having a couple thousand clips, which is an insane amount. And so, how do you get
Uh,
those clips out there, right? you would use a social media management tool. And I looked at every single one in the market, and none of them could do bulk. They would do a CSV method, which is technically bulk, but it just ends up being way too much work, especially at that scale. It doesn't actually make it worthwhile. So I need like a multi-upload bulk. I don't want to go too much into the tangent, but there was one tool that could do like a multi-upload called Publer. And Publer ended up being kind of unstable. Like I would lose a lot of progress sometimes because everything would just crash. But when it wasn't crashing and it worked fine, I would do about 30 posts at a time. And every post I had to do 8 different clicks, 8 different steps, every single one. So it ended up taking about a minute for every clip. And that's 30 minutes right there, when it should have only taken about 15. But it's because of the interface and how they just hadn't updated it in ages that caused it to be that much extra work, which ended up causing my time to be wasted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And yeah, I think like it's also your thoughts that go through your mind when you're not using the tool, like making it out to be so much bigger of a deal just because you know the hassle. It's not even the time that you spent doing the hassle, it's just that thought of, oh, I've got to go through that hassle. Or yeah, like when we get onto StreamYard, I think this is a great experience. We can't wait to click the sound check, because it probably, they probably spent a few $100s on someone singing a song off Upwork, and that became the sound check. But yeah, I think it's worth thinking about form and function.
Yeah.
And you know, on one end you have these designers that will do this beautiful design that has no connection to the reality of the journey, and then on the other end you have like people that are so in the technical weeds that they make these amazing breakthroughs that are just a pain to deal with. And I think there's a nice balance in the middle. And I think we should, whenever we're talking about marketing tools, content creation, anything to do with customer facing stuff, we need to think, where's that balance in the middle?
Yeah.
And some people want more efficiency. Like, you know, I want a good experience with my accountant, but I probably care more about paying less tax than having a nice, you know, a nice bowl of lollies when I visit her, you know, and other things. Like I probably want more form than function. But yeah, I think it's always important.
Yeah, it's good to have that balance, but also good to know like what is the actual need that you're getting from this service, and yeah, trying to find that balance and making sure that you're not being too picky too as well. We're
Yeah,
talking
totally.
about tools here, StreamYard being one of them. One thing I'd like to ask is like, what tools do you use for creation and repurposing? I really like finding out like the what people like to use.
So I'll start with podcasting, because we are on a
Okay.
podcast. For our own podcast, we record with StreamYard. Our assistant edits. I think she uses Filmora. I
Okay.
use more Descript for my end. It's just nicer user experience. Coming back to that experience, I use a little bit of Opus Clip to find viral clips, but mostly when I'm repurposing, I listen to it and I see what's the most interesting content,
Hmm.
and then I kind of tie that in with what the AI tools tell me I should do and find a good sweet spot. Repurposing content. What else do I use? With written content, I use Ubersuggest by Neil Patel quite a lot for finding the right keywords to target.
I forgot about
Then, yeah,
Ubersuggest. Yeah.
yeah, it's good. It's a lifetime deal, which is helpful, but also it's just, I just find it useful. It's not perfectly accurate, but it's quick and it's designed for content creation.
Yeah.
Lot of like free tools out there that I just happen to use just because I can click the website and it's there. Like you know, Portent for understanding if your search engine meta title and meta description are the right length. Nirim.org has a readometer for the estimated reading time on articles.
Mm.
I use Claude a lot. There's a lot of different AI tools out there, and there's an app called Poe.com, and it connects you up with all the major AI LLMs. And so I use Poe a lot these days. It just means that I can create prompt sequences, and then I can test them in. If I'm using it for writing, I'll use Claude. But if it's for more like deeper analysis and reasoning, I might use like ChatGPT, or I think this XAI is quite good for reasoning.
Mm.
And you know, if it's something else, or if I need an image, I can do it all within that one app. So that's changed the workflow significantly. Just like AI is part of every single every interaction these
I
days,
was gonna
really.
ask about AI. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? How do you use AI tools?
Oh, that's a good question. It's been a while since the guest has flipped the script a little bit on me. I use AI tools kind of in a way of trying to simplify the process. So, like, I love writing, for example, but I hate doing meta descriptions. And so I would use AI to summarize it into a couple sentence summary. So that way I had that meta description on there. But then I might also use it to kind of come up with ideas for titles. I've learned definitely not to ever use AI fully for titles, but it does kind of give you the right kind of
Mm.
pathway to it. And then there was a point back at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I got really into ChatGPT and was really digging into it. And I started like fleshing out an idea for a video game, for example. And it was helping me come up with plot. And mind you, this is back in like 3.0 era, so pretty earlier on. And so I was coming up with plot ideas, different character names, different IP titles, and stuff like that. And it was just really interesting how it was able to help flesh out what I had already created.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And it's just amazing how versatile it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find it really useful for like not so much creating the content for me,
Mm-hmm.
but for addressing writer's block. So I might be writing a landing page, and then there's a particular paragraph where I just can't quite find the right words in that particular moment. So I'll upload the landing a PDF version of the landing page, any context, and then I'll say, here's the audience, here's what I'm trying to convey here. Can you
Mm-hmm.
give me 5 ways to do it? And then I'll say, I prefer this one, but I don't like these ones because of this reason. This makes me feel like this, but I actually want to go away from this paragraph feeling like this. Can you give me 5 other options? And then
Yeah.
through doing that, I'll have like 3 rounds of feedback and maybe 15 different options within a few minutes. And then I can get, top notch copy without the level of effort and mental energy that would have taken otherwise. So that's really good. I find it's good for production of things that are quite similar every time, like show notes from a refined
Yeah.
prompt. But I have to be very, like when I'm using LLMs, at least at this stage, I have to be very actively thinking. Like the moment you kind of put half the effort into thinking about it, you can easily let bad things slip through.
That
So
happened to me once,
yeah,
yeah.
it's not quite there yet. Hey,
Yeah. That it happened to me with the title. I actually let something kind of happen, and I just used the title that it gave me, and it ended up being kind of a negative title, and I didn't realize it because it was kind of late at night. And then the person who I interviewed was pretty upset about it, and I had to go change it. But that kind of
oh
ruined
no,
that connection there a little bit. And then the other thing would be like the prompt engineering that you were mentioning there. A lot of people realize you have to prompt it well. But something that you mentioned
mm.
there, people don't really realize is reprompting it well is really key. Like really taking multiple layers and going like, okay, you did this right, but not this. Let's work on that, and kind of having that back and forth for a few times to really get the best result.
Yeah, it's like a really smart intern, but you
But still an
wouldn't give
intern.
an intern a critical job and leave them. No, they're there to be a sponge for your knowledge. Like you
Mhm.
need to give it what it needs to do a good job. I also think I've got into the habit of giving a lot of context up front. And I really recommend this is give the AI lots of relevant context. Like the more context you give it, and in terms of background information, and then also in terms of specifically what you want, the better it'll do. So when we're writing the show
Yeah.
notes, I'll give it maybe the last 10 show notes, and I'll say in a PDF document, and I'll say, hey, analyze this for tone, voice, style, flow. Tell me your findings. Tell me what my brand's tone of voice is, and it'll
Hmm.
tell me my brand's tone of voice. And then I have another prompt that I'll give it after that, where I'll say, here is the transcript of the episode. So 60,000 characters or something crazy like that. And here's a set of 25 different instructions that further reinforce how we want our brand tone of voice to be written. And so those instructions have been built and refined over writing episodes and using the prompt and then improving the prompt constantly, many, many times. And I've refined every single instruction after it's already told me the tone of voice. And then so for the AI, it actually produces pretty good stuff. We still have to edit it to get it to a standard we're happy with. But if you think like we've given it 10 examples, we've given it 60,000, like an hour's worth of transcript. And then we've also given it another 25 specific instructions refined based on its previous mistakes. And then I'm still going to give it feedback, edit, and improve it before I put something out. But what I put out, I'd be happy to put my name on as if I wrote it myself. So I think it comes down to the standard. Like anyone can be a mediocre content creator these days.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that. So the question is, if you use AI, how do you actually make your content better as a result? Like when I'm serving clients and I'm using AI, I don't spend less time on their work. I just deliver better work.
It's definitely a very important lesson for a lot of creators to learn. It's like content creators should not use AI to replace most of what they're doing. They should use it to enhance what they're doing. And I think a lot of people find that to be a hard pill to swallow. Like you're saying, there should be like it makes your stuff better, and that's what you do, Callum. It's like you make it better. But some people are trying to use AI, like Notebook LM, for example, to make a complete podcast from AI scratch and not do it themselves. And I think that's okay in some circumstances if that's what you're really wanting to do. But it might be better for you just to use Notebook LM to come up with ideas and come up with a co-host with you, and then you as the person are talking to it or something like that. Kind of having that mixture.
Absolutely. Like I've seen some ads on Facebook for our AI will write your whole entire book for you, or you put 5 clicks in, and then you have a full course, and you can sell that course and sail off into the sunset. And I'm like, humans actually have to buy and consume that course and come back and refer you for that to be a successful business. And I don't think you're going to get the user experience you're expecting based on AI just generating it. Yeah, like if you think back to the early days of SEO and content marketing on the web, you could put out terrible blogs that just were stuffed with keywords and you would show up at the top of Google. And the level of competition and the standard of content you need to meet to perform has gone up so much. And I just think that with AI tools, we're going to get quicker. We're going to get to like the minimum viable product a lot faster.
Yeah.
But the bar to perform at the top of any industry in terms of the content for that industry is just going to keep going up. And that's a good thing because,
Yeah.
It just means we've got better education and better entertainment on the internet.
Another example of like creating something and enhancing it with AI is that I love writing, but I don't always do the outlines. I can't always think of like an outline, for example, but I always have a ton of titles. I think that's how I listed out my content. I have a whole bunch of titles that I've either researched or created a long time ago. That's great. Well, I take that title, put it in a GPT or whatever, and then it'll help me come up with a 3 or 4 different subheadings that'll allow me to kind of think, okay, that's the flow of the conversation. I probably need to add another one right here that I want to add, maybe add a different conclusion or change the conclusion. And so there's a couple headings in there that were AI generated, but the actual blog post itself was from me, but it helped me speed up the process and kind of ideate better. I think that's another good example.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like it.
So kind of speaking on content here, I know that you've done a ton of writing. It's something we would talk about, obviously. And you have your podcast, and I believe your podcast is video-based, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
sure is.
yeah. Do you have other experience with video, or is it kind of more just the podcast?
I was going to call myself a video virgin, but that's going to come across the wrong way to your listeners. I haven't really been into video until this year. We are producing a mini documentary of the really interesting rat eradication of an island in the subantarctics. We visited it over Christmas, so we're doing that, and we realized how much work was involved in producing videos. So it's part of why we got into podcasting, among other things. But most of my history and my experience has been in written content, so blogs, websites, a little bit of social media, not heaps, downloads, lead magnets, newsletters, email sequences, that type of thing. I have done a little bit of webinars and seminars in the past before getting into podcasting, but I must say I was, at the end of last year, I was feeling a bit jaded with all the written content. Like, you do it to a certain standard, but you can get a bit lost in the details. And so it's been really refreshing getting into podcasting because it's just such a different medium, and it just brings out a different element and a different side of you. And also I find that you can go through so many rounds of post-production edits on a written piece of content that you lose the personality. But because we're just talking and recording this, like, the personality and the human element of the content is the content. It's not just some side angle that you put into it.
That's why I started from the beginning doing videos for these interviews, because I know that I wanted to have the hand gestures like you just shown there and to show our personalities on camera. I like that question because I was curious, because I know you had written experience. I know you had audio experience. I wasn't too sure about the video besides the video podcast. But the thing is, I know that when you start a new pillar type, your experience kind of starts over. You could have 900 blog posts under your belt, but as soon as you start podcasting, it's different. As soon as you do videos, it's different. And so your experience level has to start over. And a lot of creators find that to be difficult. But it seems like you actually have done a decent amount across all three. Probably obviously more like written content first and foremost. But you've done all three, like you said, webinars, and you've been doing a ton of interviews too. So you're like, even as a guest, you're still making content in this case. And so you don't seem nervous on camera at all. You have that presentation. So it's one of those things where you have experience in all three. I'm curious, out of all three, what is your favorite to make?
So I haven't done much in terms of highly polished videos, just for context. I'd love to do a lot more polished videos. This documentary of Campbell Island's rat eradication is the one we're doing at the moment. And I consume a lot of YouTube content, which is like polished YouTube videos. So I can't say I've done that yet, so I might change my mind. But at this stage, I prefer making audio content, podcasts, video podcasts as well. I just find it's more interesting. You get a lot more collaboration and a better relationship with your guest. Yeah, like written content's fantastic. It's really effective. But I guess I've just done it for so long. It's nice to have a change. Yeah.
I wonder if like a year from now, and probably it will be like your answer would change, so to speak, because you started doing more videos after the documentary or something like that, or maybe you just 3x the amount of podcasts you created too, or something. I'm curious to see what you're going to say in a year.
Might see you in the metaverse.
I definitely think that down the line, the metaverse is going to be an interesting dynamic. On my other show, I interviewed Eugene Kaplan, and he created the first VR talk show. And that was one of those things where it's like, that's interesting. Like it's, 360 degrees, but it's also a video at the same time. And having experiences like that, I think it's going to be something that we're going to see more of. Even back in 2017, when I started doing a lot of content in 2018, especially with video, I started looking at Insta360 and trying to figure out like, how could I make VR content or 360 content? 'Cause I had a feeling that it was going to be big down the line. Obviously, it's not big just yet, and so I was kind of too early on that. But I'm definitely curious to see where that goes.
Oh, I think it's going to hit us all of a sudden, like the AI ChatGPT movement did, and I don't think we're going to be prepared for it. I'm not prepared for it, to be honest. But yeah, I think like the technology's been developing slowly, but maybe the uptake hasn't been there. So I need to get like an Oculus goggle or something and start playing around with it.
Yeah,
that'd be quite cool.
There's some really interesting things going on right now, not so much in the content creation world, but more in the content consumption, where they're coming out with these different glasses that are, I'm not even talking about the AR glasses, which is a whole other movement, but these video glasses where they have two different screens here. And essentially, like the Apple Vision Pro, you have a screen in front of you. You have like this projected monitor in front of you. But people are using these, they're only like $300 to $500 for playing Switch on an airplane, for example, or playing other consoles, like playing video games or watching movies. They're basically media consumption glasses, but they're very good quality screens, and you get to choose what size you have. So you want it to be here, you can. If you want it to be here, fill up your whole periphery, you can. And I think that that's going to make a big difference too. And trying to create content that's really going to be immersive is an interesting angle there too.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. I guess
the beauty of conversations like this, we go on a tangent that completely was unprecedented.
I've got to look at these now. Yeah. What would you call that? What's
It's I don't remember the name of it because there's a few different brands out there. They're essentially just like
the category,
like a screen glasses, if you will, or because I know that there's one product that just came out recently that's a computer and a controller. It's a little micro PC and a controller, but it's connected to glasses, and so you can literally have the whole system in your hands. And so it's a unique product in that niche market. But there's other people who are just using Steam Decks, for example, as the computer, using the USB cable to the glasses as the screen.
Far out. I've got a feel for like all those teachers and university lecturers that are marking tests and
Mhm.
unable to tell if someone's cheated with glasses or whatever technology there is to get
I've been
past the
on
exams one day.
I've been on TikTok a lot lately, and one thing I keep seeing over and over and over again are these Bluetooth glasses that have sound and microphones. And so you can listen to music, but you can
Wow.
also answer phones with them. And they've been kind of like blowing people's minds on there. And of course, these are mainly ads for the most part of like people getting mind blown, but I can definitely see it being real because it's just one of those things where imagine just putting on these Wayfarer glasses, clear, not even like sunglasses, and all of a sudden you're on a phone call with somebody. And it's just like that seems so
Yeah.
surreal.
Oh, that's insane. It's living in the future.
Yeah. So, getting to another question here. Can you share your favorite story that's happened to you as a content creator?
Yeah, I can't think of one specific story, but there's been a few clients that we've had go along the same lines of how they've grown, and I think it's probably worth sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share actually I'll share an example, which is a company called A2X Accounting. But we've done a similar thing for a few other clients where they automate accounting for online sellers. They basically turn this drudgery of a task reconciling all the financial data into a few clicks and it's all done for you and automated and you have visibility of your
Mm-hmm.
financials. So that's the business. But I was brought in to do their content marketing earlier in my career. And as the lockdowns hit, they started growing like crazy off the back of e-commerce growing. And so we were brought in to basically make them win at Google in a nutshell. And so what we did was we mapped out all the keywords that online sellers in developed countries are searching. We clustered them into groups of shared relevant search intent. So basically, if you're not aware of SEO, when you're searching keywords, people can use tools like Ubersuggest to see all the keywords that you're searching online. And so, what we as a content marketers do is we take all the searches that are relevant to our audience of our target customer, and then we group them into similar searches that are for the same intention. And then we make blogs on each one of those topics so that when you start searching at any stage in your journey of buying what we offer, our content shows up. And then we offer upgrades on that content. So essentially, we produced over 100 blogs, really high end, in depth blogs on all these different topics. We went from 1,500 views a month to it was like 15 or 18,000 views a month in 18 months, which was all organic, and it just kept growing from
Mm-hmm.
there because we had set up a strong foundation. But then once we had done that, we then clustered them into a hub of information. So for e-commerce sellers, their financial back office is a big source of challenge as they grow sort of towards that $1 million mark and beyond. And so we then clustered it based on shared, like we've got each topic that's targeting similar intentions, and then we cluster each group of blogs into a hub of information. So we had like Amazon accounting hub and people for selling on Shopify, people selling on Etsy or eBay, and each of them had their own hubs. And then that turned into the e-commerce accounting hub, which was on top of that. And then we went out to all these different brands in the industry that they might be accountants, they might be communities of online sellers, they might be other softwares that aren't our competition but share our same audience. And then we collaborated with them to create content and put their input into the content. And
Get
then
those backlinks.
yep. So then they were sharing it on their website. We obviously published links on their website to their email lists, to their socials, did
Mm-hmm.
webinars with them on top of those, which were content upgrades. And then now that we had all these visitors on the website, the next step was to turn them into customers. And so we created upgrades. So we had like an e-commerce accounting checklist, which was 100 plus different things you need to set up at all the different stages of your journey by department of
Mm-hmm.
your business. And we had a bunch of different upgrades. So the idea was that if you came looking to solve a problem by searching something into Google, you would see our content, and then you would click on to our website, you would see quotes and relevant insights from other people you trust in your space. And then there was an upgrade that would solve even more of the problem that you came to solve. And then from that, then we'd have a sequence of sales emails, and then go into the newsletter. And once they'd signed up for a content upgrade, they go into the retargeting ads showing like case studies of how customers like you have succeeded with it. So it was a really cool experience just to see how we could go from having a few blogs here and there to this full ecosystem of content. And then how that goes, not just a wide ecosystem at the top of the funnel or at the earlier stages in your purchasing process, but how we were turning that into purchases down the bottom. And I think there's something to be said about how you structure your content program in a business. What I found really interesting as far as like the story goes is you go from having, let's just publish some words or publish some video or audio, to how do we build this into like a house? How do we build the foundations of the pyramid so that it grows up? And I think looking at what are the core pain points in your customer's journey, how do we put like what are the key considerations? What are people asking, whether that's on social or search or whatever, and then creating content around those, and then creating an immersive journey that they can go deeper and deeper to the point where they buy from you. It takes time. Like it's not something that happens overnight, but it also lasts for longer time. And I think it creates more trust in every element of your customer journey and every element of your marketing by having that. So that was really interesting experience.
Wow, Callum, you obviously know what you're doing, and there's a lot of different topics there that I think a lot of people might not realize we're all connected. And so I think that's when it comes to SEO, it's not something I've talked enough about on this show, and even blogging in general. I think that I've been focusing too much on the YouTube and podcasters when it comes to my guests. I've been trying to be pretty wide ranging when it comes to the guests I have on, because I think there's lessons to be learned in all these different fields. One thing I was going to mention is that everything you just explained about SEO for blogs is very similar to SEO for YouTube. And a lot of people don't realize how like twins they are in that situation. The one thing I really wanted to get into there with you is the clusters, especially since you unlocked that memory of mine. I kind of forgot about clusters, and you have the clusters of topics, but then you have the clusters of pillar pages, and those pillar pages go down to the collection of blog posts and how that all flows together, not to mention the interlinks between those collections and blog posts. One thing I'm really excited about, because I use Ghost CMS for my blog, is that they finally came up with a feature that allows you to reference any other post on your site. So you just have to do a little @ symbol, and you can link to any kind of keyword if you have a blog post about that already. And I know that WordPress had some plugins kind of like that, but after leaving WordPress, I was kind of left at a loss. It's like, how do I build out my SEO like that and get those interconnective links? That's pretty much how I'm going to have to go through all my blog posts and add them later on.
Oh, right.
Retroactively. Okay. But it's kind of cool. Like, cool. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think like any business should be focused around what problem are we solving for the customer. Mm-hmm. Any marketing program should be focused around what problem are we solving for the customer. Any content program should be focused around what problem are we solving for the customer. And if your content clusters are based on the core problems or considerations of your customer, then you're investing in not just some education that might get their attention, but something that can solve problems and deliver more value once they've bought or when they're signing up. Or there's just so many other uses of it. And if you look at the organization as a whole, I think there's a case to be made that if that's the way that you structure your content, it becomes a strategic business asset, not just a marketing tool. Like I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, look, we've got the clusters of content on the front end of blogs. They turn into our content pillars for our socials. They turn into the stuff we send in our emails, but they also turn into the support resources we have for our customer service team. They also turn it into, like which studies and scientific papers we might reference. They also turn into just so many other elements of the business. They turn into support hubs, future collaborations with influencers. And so I think if you're in the early stages of your content marketing journey, you can think about clusters, you can identify them, you can start creating the clusters, but just know that this can go as deep as you want it to go. Like there's no reason why you... Yeah, and it can't. There's no reason why that can't be like almost a department in your business in the future if it's successful. But I think you've got to start with what's going to work. Give it enough time to perform, but also just watch what's performing. And then once you see which clusters are getting you performance, like go deeper down those.
And thing is too, you're talking about content repurposing in an angle that I think a lot of people don't realize is a possibility. They always think of taking pillar pieces of content like this video, turning it into clips. Like that's kind of basic kind of understanding of it. What does content repurposing mean to you?
Ooh, what does content repurposing mean to you? Mean to me? Yeah, I think it just comes down to getting more value out of the effort you put in. So for the producer of the content and for the brand that's commissioning that content, like if we're going to invest good resources into creating a really good piece of content, you'd be silly not to repurpose it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I see a lot of people creating really mediocre podcasts. And then it's like, let's just create lots of average podcasts. Or I'd rather you create less higher quality podcasts and repurpose them.
Mm-hmm.
Your audience is going to appreciate it. I think so. That's part of it. I also think so you can create less content and you can go deeper, and then you can get it in front of more people wider. I think for the audience also, you want to have a relationship with the brand that was the same reason why you signed up. So if
Yeah.
let's say I supply equipment to cafes and restaurants, for just making this up, for example, and you land on a social media post that says, here's 5 ways to get more out of your commercial coffee machine. And then you land on my website and I'm saying, hey, actually, here's 10 different ways to structure your front of house layout. And then you sign up for an email list and you send me a resource on like, here's how to save electricity when in your off season. Like, it's just so disconnected in the journey. Whereas if you use
Mm-hmm.
content repurposing and you said, okay, the first piece of content I touched was how to, look after your coffee machine better. And then it was like, here's a checklist. When go to your website and sign up to your email, here's a checklist of 20 different things to do each month to get the best coffee grind and the best coffee brew out of your machine. And then after I signed up, the call to action was that, like, do you want us to service your coffee machine? I would say, well, that's a very consistent journey. And I think that's one of the bits of value that content repurposing brings, is it means that, yes, you have less work. It gives you more reason to allocate resource to creating that initial in-depth primary piece of content really well. But it also means that for the user, to me, yeah, it means that they have a consistent journey, which means that there's just like no weird surprises later on.
Mm-hmm. My brain started going into my own website as you were explaining it, the content journey. I kind of envisioned what the newsletter was about, what the YouTube was about, and like the pillar posts, getting that down to a more refined funnel.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
But I think also, like, there's two major ways of going about it. One would be to chase the traffic, chase the volume, chase the engagement and clicks. So we can look at, for SEO, we can use tools like Ubersuggest to see what people are searching for. Social media, we can use social listening tools to see what's trending.
Mm-hmm.
Similar tools for most platforms like YouTube and podcasts, etc. And we can chase the volume, and then we can try to convert that. Now that's really gratifying at the start, because you
Right.
see that you're getting views and followers, etc. But it can be a bit hard to say, now that we've got the volume, have we got the right people visiting us? Have they got the right level of trust? If we make an offer, is that offer going to be what they need? And there can be a bit of a disconnect turning that volume into sales. And not to say it can't be done, but there's just a bit of a challenge there. The other option is that you can chase the human behind it. So saying, this is my audience, this is my target customer, here's the problems they face. I'll go talk to them. I'll find out all their pain points, and then I'll create content around those pain points. Now, there might not be search volume. That might not be getting talked about on social. Might not be trending on your medium or platform of choice. But
Mm-hmm.
if you do that, you might get less followers and less engagement, but you can pretty much guarantee that the engagement you get is going to be much more relevant. And so, if you think like, the first option is chase the volume and convert a small percentage, the second option would be chase the customers, solve their problems, and then amplify that through content, which means that your
Mm-hmm.
funnel is going to be not as wide at the top, but every new person that comes in is so much more likely to turn into a customer, and they're more likely to spend more money over their lifetime. And so I think you've got to decide, like, where are you at. I think if you're in like some mass market consumer product and there's huge search and huge volume, just pick up the volume and convert it. And if you're in a higher value, more strategic thing, like a lot of the B2B services that I work with, then you probably want to make sure that you're doing right by the customer before looking for the volume.
That makes sense, especially considering the angle of where you're coming from, is what you're saying.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
Another question here is, how does paste and publish work?
Yeah, so you paste our work and you publish it, then you become the most successful business in your industry. No, just joking.
I love that. That's good. That's a good pitch right there.
Well, that was the original promise. Was we used to create content for you, so it was yeah, we'll make content so good. All you've got to do is paste and publish, or just let us paste and publish it for you. You won't even need to make edits to it. And it was a pretty high bar to set, that's for sure. But we used to be a marketing agency, but these days it's mostly just me, and I coach people on their content marketing. So companies come along, they might have hired a marketing person on their team. They might have outsourced it, but they've still got to manage that outsourced agency or contractor. And for most businesses, they don't know what they don't know. They didn't get into business to be marketers. And so I come in and help them to build that capability and really stand in their corner and say, all right, how do we get you to your goals? What are your goals? Who is your ideal customer? What are their problems? Where are you at? What is your growth ambition? How fast do you want to get there? What resources do you have to put into it? How much time and capacity do you have to put in there? And what is your specific context? Based on that, where are you planning to publish content? What topics? We then install all of our systems we've refined over years of building an agency. We put into place SOPs, checklists, processes, and then we work with the client to implement the strategy. We train them up. We meet live. We give them like feedback. They'll submit the content to me, and then I'll send like Loom videos and comments and give them feedback, so that basically we train them up to be the asset that can own their marketing for the future. But if they ever leave, then all the foundations are there for the next person to come in and perform a lot easier than if they didn't have it. And so when I was running my agency, I found that we would deliver great work, but the moment if a relationship ends, then you're just left with the work. You don't actually have the ability to create new deliverables without trying to find someone else that can match it. So yeah, basically it was like, let's build that capability within businesses, and then they can own their own future as far as marketing and content and comms goes.
And now you shifted towards the coaching aspect, kind of like a fractional CMO in a way.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about too. When you first pitched for the show, I didn't initially see the connection there because I looked at your profile and I just didn't see it at first. But when you pitched, like, you kind of went back to it. You're determined, if you will, and I respect that because I ended up looking a little deeper, and the way you explained it you did a really good job at pitching yourself and explaining yourself. And then you even sent a Loom video explaining yourself too, which I think is a great way as a guest to try to like talk to the host and try to convey to them. Because for me, literally, it was just an initial, didn't seem like a match at first. Once I looked a little bit deeper, I realized, oh, like, this guy has a ton of value. I should have him on. I just think that's kind of an interesting comparison to what you were just saying too. As a coach.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think I followed up a few times. And I was like, actually, I think I am relevant. Hey, Dustin.
Well, especially since I got like really busy at one point too. I think when you first messaged and said I was on me.
Yeah. No, but it's like when we think about content marketing, we think about and content creation. We often think about the tools, the process, the checklists, the output. But for a lot of companies, the business owner is thinking, yeah, but how does this fit into my business? What is like, who's going to wear the hats? Who's going to sign off on the work? Who's going to, like, what's this going to cost? What's the return? When am I going to see the return? What's it going to mean for my company valuation? What's it going to mean for what type of person am I actually going to put into my company? Like, what am I going to outsource? What am I going to keep in house? Is it just too hard and do I just do it later, or do I just outsource it and just hope that they do it right? Who do I hire? How do I know if they're doing a good job? Like, these are the questions that the business owner is asking. And I find that as a creator, it's easy to get into, but we can do this thing over here and we can make it really cool. But yeah, if the business case is there, that's good. But also as a creator, if you can talk to the business case, you can get rewarded better for your work. So I feel like being that bridge just means that everyone gets better results.
And you're the bridge more so for the businesses, but it kind of leads me into my next question here because I brought this up before the call even. Like, you mainly work with the B2B side of things, but how could creators turn their websites into more customer getting machines, as you say? And kind of what you just said there, like these creators can learn from that same model and apply it to their content, if you will. But what do you think?
So I think it depends on the specifics of the creator. And I can't give generalized advice on all creators without seeing what they're about. But I
Yeah.
would just ask, do you have a specific audience? Do they have a specific problem? Is that problem something they're willing and able to pay to solve?
Mm.
There's a lot of creators that will chase the engagement. And so they'll go across so many different topics that their audience is just kind of anyone that will engage. And for those people, I'd say just focus on your niche, find your niche, and just really become you can call it the market of one, but like the leader in that, solving that specific problem. If you are solving a specific problem, then yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You talk to your customers or your audience, see what they need, create content that solves smaller problems, and then identify bigger problems from the smaller problems. Your free content's created, and you can sell courses or coaching or consulting or referrals or a number of other types of solutions there.
Mm.
There's a couple of people worth following if that's your situation. One is Justin Welsh. He has really good education. His newsletter is really good for helping creators in that respect. And the other one is Ollie Richards, who I found via Justin Welsh, and he built Storylearning, which is an online education business. But if you're a creator thinking, how do I turn my audience into income? Definitely talk to him. But I think definitely sign up for his content if you want mentoring. I think he offers it. Yeah, I think it just comes back to like, who's the human? What problem do they have?
Mm.
How are you solving it? Are they willing to pay to solve it? Do they trust you enough to solve that problem for them? And if you can do that right and you can keep showing up and improving, then you're onto a winner. But if that foundation isn't in place, then it's kind of hard to know where you're going.
Right. And we talked a lot from the angle of being a writer or a blogger and that kind of SEO focused in the written side of things. But this same lessons that you're talking about right now can be applied to audio and video and live streaming as well. And I just wanted to put that out there so people can understand that each content type really does have a lot of parallels. It might be different in how you do it, but what you just said there, like providing the value and really kind of going deep into getting that funnel into things, and it all works for all content is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely. Look, there's a human at the other side.
Yes, the human side of things, human centric.
Yeah, we're not cyborg robots yet.
Well, with AI, maybe we will be.
maybe so. But media is just a way of distilling conversation into a way that can be consumed unlimited times. And that media can be blogs, it can be websites, it can be podcasts, it can be videos, and many future mediums like we talked about, VR and metaverse, etc. But at the end of the day, there's still a human with 24 hours on one end of it and a brand or someone offering something on the other end and some type of media in the middle. So I think like the foundational principles, the first principles of content marketing are always going to be the same unless we become cyborgs and all of a sudden this doesn't apply. But for the moment, I think it does.
Definitely. Now, besides the documentary, what do you have coming down the line that you're looking forward to, Callum?
Ooh-wee. So starting with a new company next week at the time of recording.
Ooh.
So we will have started probably by the time this goes live. And that company is called Carbon Invoice. And they basically work with small to medium-sized businesses to make it really easy for them to mitigate their carbon emissions by planting native trees in their local community. So you click a button, it measures, connects to your accounting system and asks you a few simple questions. And then within 3 minutes, it tells you, like, here's how much your carbon emissions are. Here's how many native trees you need to plant locally to mitigate the effect of those emissions. And then it helps companies to promote how they're more sustainable, provide procurement reports, sustainability, responsibility reports, like social media posts, adverts, all that kind of stuff is generated within the platform. So I'm really excited to start with that because it kind of ties my environmental hat and my marketing hat together with B2B and helping business. Our charity is Conservation Amplified, conservationamplified.org. and we run the People Helping Nature podcast. We're about to publish our 11th episode today, which we do fortnightly, and we've had some really fascinating guests on, and we've just got like this crazy jam-packed lineup of interviews in the next few weeks. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, and then we've got, like I said before, this Campbell Island rat eradication documentary coming out soon. So we've got the final edit from our editors, and it's ready to review, hopefully tonight. So there's a few things on.
Well, and hopefully by the time this episode comes out too, people can start checking out some of those different things, especially the new business here. If people wanted to find you, where can they find you online?
For general networking, LinkedIn's pretty good. On there, Callum Armstrong, search it up, it should come up. If you're interested in content marketing and getting some coaching or advice, pasteandpublish.com. And if you're interested in the environment and how people are helping nature, and especially in New Zealand and what people are doing, check out our podcast, People Helping Nature podcast, or go to conservationamplified.org, and all the information is there.
Not to mention ManukaEssentials.com as well, too.
Yes, so I actually sold that business, but check it out because it is good skincare.
Yeah.
Keeps your beard nice and long and healthy.
Yeah, I definitely have that problem.
Go get some beard oil.
I actually didn't want to grow my beard. Yeah. Well, and I wanted to mention, too, just the different links that we have down below for you. And once again, this is Dustin, PolyInnovator, and Callum Armstrong on the PolyTools Creator Spotlight. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dustin. It's been a good fun chat with you. So I appreciate the opportunity to show up.
I'm glad you came.